Home to the Mighty Five, Utah has some of the most diverse landscapes in the country, and some of the most famous national parks as well, including Arches National Park, Canyonlands National Park, Capitol Reef National Park, Bryce Canyon National Park, and Zion National Park. In this video, we'll be going over how to visit these parks with everything you need to know to have a great trip. From the best hikes to accommodations and the best times of year to visit, this will be an all-inclusive travel guide. This video will be a 7-day itinerary on how to road trip the Mighty Five. And along the way, I'll share some of my favorite places to visit outside of the parks and some places that are much more under the radar. Really quick though, I'd like to mention that I have a top 10 hikes and places to visit video for almost all of these parks individually, so while we will go over the hotspots in this video, if you're looking for more places to see in each individual park, you can find those videos on the channel. And if you don't mind, it'd mean the world to me if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. But without further ado, let's hop right in. This is how to road trip Utah's Mighty Five national parks. If you're going to do this as a road trip and you don't live in Utah or nearby states, then you're going to have to fly to start this trip. In which case, the best places to fly into in order of easiest would be Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, or Denver. If you live in Utah or nearby state, then you'll just start the drive. For flights, I always use Google Flights. It has the best deals on the internet. Bree and I live in Denver, so for purposes of this video, we're going to be visiting the parks in this itinerary starting in Moab and driving west, making our way to Springdale and Zion. So day one, we're going to make our way to Moab, which is home to Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park. But on our drive from Denver, we decided to add 20 minutes to our drive and take the scenic route on Route 128, passing by Dewey Suspension Bridge, Fisher Towers, and Castle Valley. If we're already driving 5 or 6 hours, it's worth it to add 20 minutes because this area of Moab is so beautiful and it's such a nice addition to the parks. Once you make it to Moab, we're going to head into the park in the afternoon and go straight to Double Arch, which is one of the most iconic places in Arches and only a half of a mile hike with 95 feet of elevation gain. It's like a giant playground and the views are amazing. And next, you're going to head down to Delicate Arch to catch sunset, which is arguably the most famous hike in Utah. It's 3.2 miles round trip with 629 feet of elevation gain. Delicate Arch is amazing, and you'll actually notice that it is on the license plate for Utah as well. So you can keep an eye out for that as you're on your road trip. There's much more to see in Arches, but if you're going to follow this 7-day itinerary, you're going to leave this trail and enjoy the scenic drive back. It'll be blue hour and getting dark, but along the drive, you'll get to see Balance Rock and Park Avenue from the car. For Moab, the best places to stay are going to be downtown Moab or Green River, which is 50 minutes north. Moab is awesome, but because it's so popular, the accommodations have gotten disgustingly expensive over the years. There are great camping options and there is a KOA, but if you don't mind the extra driving to Green River, it's worth considering a hotel there. On day 2, you'll wake up and head right to Canyonlands National Park, and you're going to enjoy a sunrise hike to Mesa Arch, which is the best hike in the park, and it's only 0.7 miles with 88 feet of elevation gain. The sun rises behind the Losee Mountains in the distance, lighting up the arch with beautiful golden sunrise light. This hike is in the Islands in the Sky district of Canyonlands, which is the most trafficked area of the park, but also the most accessible. After Mesa Arch, you'll head over to Schaefer Canyon Overlook and Viewpoint, which are really awesome overlooks of a 4-wheel drive trail. Then you can continue to drive down the park road and visit Candlestick Tower Overlook and Whale Rock. And if you're looking for a big hiking day in Canyonlands, I'd recommend adding a day and going to Druid Arch. But this is in the Needles district of Canyonlands, and the trailhead is an hour and 45 minutes from Moab. The hike itself is also almost 10 miles, so you would need an extra day for this hike. But after your drive through Island in the Sky, you're going to head back to your hotel in Moab or Green River, grab a bite to eat, and rest up for the next day. On the morning of day 3, while you're in Moab, you'll definitely need to check out Dead Horse State Park, which is a beautiful state park overlooking parts of Canyonlands. And between Dead Horse and Canyonlands Island in the Sky, there's a beautiful place called Marlboro Point that you need to check out if you have 4-wheel drive. I've probably been to the Arches and Canyonlands area a dozen times, but it wasn't until one of my most recent trips that we were actually finally able to get to Marlboro Point because we had this Toyota 4Runner, so I can't thank Toyota enough for helping us get to this amazing location. After a beautiful last morning in Moab, it's time to make your way to Capitol Reef National Park. But just before reaching the next park, you're going to pass through a town called Hanksville, which is one of the most underrated places in the entire state. You'll drive right through it. It'd be easy to just pass it it if you didn't know any better because the town itself isn't anything to write home about, but there are so many beautiful and otherworldly landscapes here, including Factory Butte, Goblin Valley State Park, and the Bentonite Hills. If you have time, the Hanksville area is an incredible place to spend a few days in with lots to do, and it's also one of the few accommodation options for Capitol Reef National Park. Capitol Reef is the most remote park of the Mighty Five, so on the east side, your best spot for a hotel is Hanksville unless you're going to be camping. And if you don't stay in Hanksville, you could also stay in Torrey or Fruita on the west side of Capitol Reef, but in my opinion, the best accommodations for Capitol Reef are wild camping near Factory Butte. And if you're struggling to find an accommodation, or if all the hotels are sold out, because I have run into this problem before in this area, Capitol Reef can be seen as a drive-through day trip rather than a multi-day thing. Considering you had a place to stay in one of those towns, we're going to start day 4 with a bright and early drive to Temple of the Moon and Sun in Cathedral Valley of Capitol Reef. The best time of day to see this spot is sunrise, so if you want to catch the nice light here, you have to drive the long dirt road in the dark. Most cars can make it, but towards the end it definitely helps to have some clearance. The sunrise is worth the early morning though. Cathedral Valley is such an underrated destination. And right next door, after the sun has come out, you can check out Glass Mountain, which is a cool and unique pit stop just a 1-minute drive away from Temple of the Moon and Sun. After this, it's time to drive through the main park road of Capitol Reef, and depending on how much you want to hike, or if you have extra time, my favorite hikes in the park are Hickman Natural Bridge, Navajo Knobs, and Cassidy Arch. Although, if I only had time for one hike, it would be Hickman Bridge, which is a 1.7-mile hike with 416 feet of elevation gain. After this, you'll continue driving west on the park road, and you'll enjoy a nice scenic drive through the rest of Capitol Reef, where you'll see the Fluted Wall, Chimney Rock, and Panorama Point. After this park, the next destination is Bryce Canyon National Park, so day 4 will end with the beautiful drive to Bryce. If you have time, it's worth spending some time in Escalante that you'll drive through, because there's a handful of epic hikes here. But for Bryce, you'll need to get a hotel, and the best location is Bryce Canyon City. This is the most touristy section and most expensive, with not too many options honestly, but thankfully, if you don't want to stay here, nearby you can also stay in Panguitch, which has a handful of restaurants and more hotel options. I've stayed at both the Quality Inn and Roadway Inn. Both are affordable and great options. After a good night's sleep, it's time to start day 5 with a full day of exploring Bryce Canyon National Park. Bryce is a great park because honestly, you don't need more than a day here. Of course, if you want to hike a handful of trails, you could spend more time here, but you can see 90% of the park by just driving the scenic park road. The best and most iconic spots you'll need to see while you're here are Sunset Point, Wall Street, Natural Bridge, Navajo Loop to Queen's Garden, Mossy Cave, and Inspiration Point. And if you want to see the park from above, you can take a scenic flight from Ruby's Inn in Bryce Canyon City. It's one of the most affordable scenic flights I've ever taken, and it's a great way to see the park from a different vantage point. After a full day of exploring here, you'll head out and drive through Losee Canyon outside of the park, which has more hoodoos and beautiful rock formations. And you'll make your way towards Zion National Park, which is my favorite of the Mighty Five. The best town to get a hotel in for Zion is going to be Springdale. It is pricey, so if you don't mind driving a little more and you're looking for something more affordable, you can stay in St. George, Hurricane, or Mount Carmel Junction. These are all great options, but of these, St. George is my favorite because there's so much to do here aside from Zion. And there's also a handful of glamping options in the area. Our favorite is Zion Glamping Adventures in Hilldale. So on day 6, you're going to wake up and head right into the park, and if you visit Zion in the summer months, you will have to park and take the shuttle, but thankfully this is easier than it sounds because typically I think national park shuttles are a nightmare, but this one's pretty easy. There's so much to see in the park and there's so many hikes to do, but it wouldn't be a proper visit to Zion without hiking the Narrows and Angel's Landing. So on the first day, as we make our way to the Narrows, we're going to stop at Court of the Patriarchs and then stop and hike to the Emerald Pools, and then we're going to finish off the day with hiking the Narrows It's best to end your day with the Narrows because hiking other trails after your shoes are wet is just miserable. For the Narrows, the nice thing is that you can hike as much or as little as you want. You'll pass 90% of park visitors after the first half mile, and then you can properly enjoy the canyon without a ton of people. On the last day, we're going to hike Angel's Landing, which has been dubbed as one of the most dangerous hikes in the country. Although, in my opinion, it's really not that bad. It's an awesome hike that's only 4.3 miles round trip with 1,827 feet of elevation gain. Towards the end, you will have to go through some narrow chain section to reach the top, and once you make it to the top, the views are incredible. You do need a permit nowadays to do this trail, so you'll have to either apply for the last-minute lottery in the park or ahead of time on recreation.gov's website. After hiking Angel's Landing on day 7, it's going to be time to head home and make the long drive back to Denver. The best times of year to visit these parks, in my opinion, is spring and fall. You can visit the parks year-round, but in the winter, some trails may not be accessible due to snow, or they're more dangerous, and some areas of the parks can actually be closed. For example, more than 2/3 of Bryce Canyon is closed in the winter because it gets so much snow. Surprisingly, Bryce sits on a high plateau at 7,664 feet above sea level. The summer is also great, but you will have to deal with the heaviest crowds and the scorching heat where temperatures can reach 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you liked this video and found some helpful information in it. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. I have a handful of travel guides from places all over the country and the world on my channel, so I hope you stick around to check them out. And I want to give Toyota one last big thank you for letting us use this 40th anniversary 4Runner. We had so much fun driving this around, and hopefully one day we can own one of these ourselves. Anyways, I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching.